Welcome back to Dirty 20, everybody. Today we're discussing stat blocks and how to run monsters in combat. Let's get on with the show. If you haven't had the chance yet, please make sure to check out our video on creating combat encounters. There's lots of useful info still in that. But today I wanted to focus more on the actual stat blocks of the monsters and also about how you would use them in combat and the places where flexibility is kind of important. Let's take a look at the stat block for the Earth Elemental in the Monster Manual on page number 124. Now, taking a look at this top part here, this is where I always start when I think about how to run a monster, and that is by looking at AC and hit points. This is mainly to try and gauge how long I think the monster will survive in combat. In this case, AC 17 makes the Earth Elemental pretty tough to hit, but not impossible. And at 126 hit points, it's fairly decent. It can hold up for a while. Now, the hit points are obviously a kind of median chosen. There's also a number of dice that you can roll, but I tend to go for the median, and this is why. Flexibility in combat is massively important in order to make it satisfying, not allowing it to drag on, and also not allowing it to just finish in an instant because you didn't quite gauge it right. And the hit points is the first point of flexibility that I think for most monsters when you run them in combat. What I mean by this is that if after a few rounds, 2-3 rounds I would say, there's been a couple of critical hits and you're thinking that this monster is going to go any minute, then I think it's absolutely fine to increase the hit points for the purposes of, again, extending a combat so that it feels satisfying in its length, but not so long that it drags out. I think the ideal is kind of 4-5 rounds of intense, challenging combat that really kind of hit that sweet spot. Now, as far as I'm concerned, this is very different to fudging dice rolls. Fudging dice rolls is when you roll attacks or saves or anything like that, and you adjust the result to what you want it to be, whether it be if you roll a critical to hit a PC that you think pretty likely to kill them outright, that might be a place where somebody would fudge. If it feels like it is an unsatisfactory kind of death, I don't discount that as an option. But I think much more common for me is this idea that the number of hit points that a creature has can vary, whether it's bringing them down a little bit if the combat's dragging on, or giving them some more if I feel that they're getting absolutely smashed. Looking back at the stat block, we can see that its ability modifiers give you a very good indication of what kind of a combatant this creature is going to be. In this case, we're looking at 20 in strength and a 20 in con, which means that this is going to be a brawler, heavy hitter, melee, up in your face, not long distance, not casting spells. So, it gives you a very quick idea. Also, when you check the actions at the bottom and you can see their slams, that is their main source, their main and only attack, really. I think that it gives you a good idea of how you can use this. Next up, a thing that I think is very useful to consider, and that's its vulnerabilities, resistances, and immunities. Now, vulnerability means that if you cause damage of a particular type, in this case, the vulnerability for the Earth Elemental is thunder damage, then that damage is actually doubled, right? Resistance means that any damage that the Earth Elemental takes, which is from piercing, slashing, all the ones that are listed, which are non-magical, then it takes half of that damage. Immunity means that it takes no damage from it. In this case, poison. Also, there are some condition immunities. Things like Charmed is a very common one, but in this case, the unconscious one. So I guess it just explodes when you destroy it. But this is also useful because it can have an impact on how long a combat can last. If you have a lot of melee combatants that are kind of, level 4 thereabouts, which I think this particular monster would be very good for. A small party of level 4 characters, 3 or 4 characters. I think it could pose an interesting challenge and not be something that they just kind of absolutely rumble over. But again, these vulnerabilities, resistances all apply because, again, if you have archers and barbarians and fighters, it's going to take a long time to get this thing down because it's not 126, it's double that because of its resistance. Now, the challenge rating is something that I glance at usually the first thing when I'm trying to build a combat encounter, as this gives me a very loose guide as to the kind of level or difficulty this creature is going to be. In this case, it's a challenge rating of 5. Now, to me, that says that a party of maybe 3 or 4 level 4 characters would find it challenging, depending on the situation, to defeat this creature. Probably not deadly. No one would be likely to die, or, I mean, depending on the rolls, you could get some people fall unconscious, certainly. But this changes radically if you then decide, well, I have a party of 6 level 4 characters. Let's throw 2 earth elementals at them, and that will be fine, right? Not quite, because when you have multiple characters, especially once you start getting into outnumbering the PCs, is when things can get very deadly very quickly. A resource that I strongly recommend is called Kobold Fight Club, and there you can see what, according to challenge rating, they say would be a easy, medium, hard, and deadly encounter by selecting how many PCs at what level and the creatures that you would be throwing at them. Very handy. At the very bottom of our stat block, you then have the abilities and also the actions of the creature. In this case, we saw earlier, this has a multi-attack of a slam. It also has the Earthglide and Siege monster ability. So Earthglide makes it, gives you an idea of how you could use this, almost like a land shark, something that stalks its prey by burrowing and attacking from below. Any of you saw season 2 of the Mando, there's that great crate dragon, which is very, very cool. You could use it in a similar kind of way. And also just an idea that, if you wanted to use this against party members who are defending, then woof, Siege Monster means that it's very, very bad against, edifices and things like that. So there we have it. We took a look at a monster stat block and we talked a little bit about how we might use this monster in combat, the kind of points to focus on, to know how to use them, and how to create a challenging but satisfying combat encounter. Thank you for joining us. As always, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. Drop us a comment down below as to your favorite monsters. Why do you like using them? Why do you like playing against them? Personally, like a gelatinous cube is an absolute classic since I saw Onwards. But let us know. Thanks again. As always, keep slaying. If you've enjoyed this content, then please smash that like button, subscribe, share this around online, and come and visit our website, www.lavictoriaproductions.com, to see all our past episodes, as well as our blog posts and all the stuff that we're currently working on at La Victoria Productions. Why not reach out to us and tell us what you think of our videos? You can reach us on Twitter. @MouthLaVictoria is our producer. We are also on Instagram. I am EnanoLVP. and our producer is Jazzy J. Cherot. We're also La Victoria Productions on Facebook and LinkedIn. Come on by and let us know what you think.